So, how do we live for Jesus in our culture, and what's our attitude to the culture around us where we live? Well, we wanted to think about this a bit this past weekend as we were gathered together for our joint celebration with the different nationalities, different members of the communities all gathered together. And one of the things we've been thinking about actually was the wide varieties of cultures and communities there are around the world. We've been talking about Venezuela, we were talking about Mongolia, and we thought about Derby as well, where we all mostly live in Normanton. And one of the things we wanted to try and think about is how do we live out our lives in this place? Now, one of the things that's really important is to know what our attitude is, because sometimes Christians get really negative about the place where they live and they kind of want to withdraw from it and just like live in a little isolated bubble. And other times people get so involved that there's not really any difference between them. We read a few verses from the Old Testament, from the book of Jeremiah, to try and think about this a little bit, because in the book of Jeremiah, what you've got there is a message from a prophet of God to the people of the Old Testament, the Israelites, who were living in Babylon. They were living in exile. They'd been taken away from the place where they'd grown up and lived before that time. And they were trying to figure out, how do we live now in this place? What do we do? Are we supposed to be rising up against it? Are we supposed to be plotting a rebellion? Are we meant to be resisting it? What do we do with this now? And the prophet Jeremiah wrote them some words to try and help them think about this, a message from God. And it's in Jeremiah 29, verse 7. And this is what he said. To go a couple of verses before, in verse 4 and 5, God says, "Build homes, plan to stay, plant gardens, and eat the food they produce. Marry and have children. Then find spouses for them, so that you may have many grandchildren. Multiply, do not dwindle away, and work for the peace and prosperity of the city where I sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, for its welfare will determine your welfare." So he's telling them there, get involved. Get involved in the society that you live in. You know, in any culture, in any society, there are many things that are going to be good. There are also going to be some things that aren't so good. But the thing is, as followers of Jesus, we need to be living distinctly. We need to have our values as Christians, as followers of Jesus. We're living his way. He's shaping our lives, how we think, how we look, how we practice our lives each day. And as well as that, we need to get involved. We don't want to be disengaged. So we're distinct, but we're not disengaged. That's the thing, okay? And we want to then be working for the good of the culture that we live in, to be involved, to be a blessing, to be engaging and participating in all that is good and wonderful and interesting and exciting, and especially in a place like this where there's so many different cultures and there's so much to enjoy and celebrate about the diversity that's here. We want to enjoy that and participate in that, whilst at the same time being able to challenge and seek to renew things that are not good and stand against things that aren't good. But we do that from a position of involvement and seeking the good and the blessing of the place where we are. So one of our values as a church communities is this, that we say that we are, as residents of our city, we're wanting to work to redress injustice, pursue reconciliation, and welcome marginalised people. We want to celebrate diversity of culture in our local contexts while recognising the need for gospel renewal. And in the context of all of that, we then want to encourage one another to glorify God and serve others through workplaces, through businesses, community projects, government and artistic endeavour. All kinds of different things, because we want to be followers of Jesus in the real world. And that's really, really important.